It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life. And yes, it's getting close to the election. I know everyone's all freaked out. That said, don't worry, take a deep breath. We're not doing politics on this show. Next weekend, we will have a guest who's going to help us compare and contrast the different economic policies of each candidate, but not really like the biggest deal in the world, frankly, in terms of how people are approaching the election. It seems like it's the economy stupid. Not happening so much right now. So anyway, that said, this is us, and we are available at Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com, and we're broadcasting from the Capital One Bank virtual studios. Capital One, this is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? I like saying it like that, Mark. Wallet. Sounds very dramatic. Mark has a $20 bill. I have, amazingly, three $100 bills. What do you think of that? Mark says it's the difference between host and producer. You know, at certain bank branches, they've started to give out larger bills, which I don't mind. I'm fine with that. I'm cool with it. So there you have it. All right. If you have a financial question, don't forget, you can always go to our website. Hey, Mark, someone sent me a note about the website who said, wait a second, I just want to double check this. They said that when they went onto the website, the tab at the top, the search, watch, read, listen, and all that didn't show up. Is that because that doesn't show up on the phone, right? Because on the phone, it has those lines. Right. On the phone, it gives you a drop-down menu. On your desktop, or whatever you're looking at, and on the web browser, it will give you the fun tabs that go right across. So yeah, just check it out. It's there. We also have that contact button. It's in the top right-hand corner to the right of my very different hair. The good news is, Mark, that using this old picture, I don't look so bad. And my hair looks great. My hair looks horrible right now. I really need to, I got to get going on this. Good thing I haven't been on TV lately. Anyway, we want to hear from you. Send us a note. That is what Yoni did. And okay, check this out. Here's the subject. I love it. Worried Jewish New Yorker looking for financial career advice. Hi, Jill and Mark, longtime listener, second-time writer-caller. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, Yoni says, I'm wondering if you could provide some sage insight into a professional dilemma I find myself grappling with as a result of the pandemic. Here's the question. Should I pursue a freelance career juggling multiple clients, always hunting for work, feeling tense about where the next one is coming from, but secure in the diversity of a balanced practice? Or should I focus on landing that in-house role with all the benefits and, in parentheses, false sense of security? That's hysterical. I'm a 30-year-old graphic designer in New York. I was let go from my full-time job and have been fighting like hell for the last 7 months to keep up professionally. I've started to build a decent little freelance practice with multiple clients and referrals, and I'm finding that it seems viable for now. However, I have my heart set on an in-house position at a larger agency or organization because of that feeling of security that a steady paycheck provides. I'm conservative like you. I have a healthy cash buffer, over 12 months of living expenses and a high-yield savings account. Fantastic. $40,000 in a Roth IRA, rollover IRA, and a TIAA 403B. I do teach a couple of classes at some local colleges. And so in addition to that, another $70,000 in taxable accounts. I'm not married. I live with my partner of 8 years and our dog. No plans to get married or have kids. We share 2 adjacent apartments in an income-restricted HDFC co-op. We each have a mortgage on our apartments. Mine has a remaining principal of $150,000, 11 years left. Wow. The interest 3.375%, approximately worth $325,000. It's hard to assess what my annual income will be this year and in the future, given the fluctuations. I've been fortunate that my previous full-time employment entitled me to generous unemployment insurance, But if I were to pursue a full-time freelance, I won't be entitled to it next time. I worry about things like feeling confident enough to return to my standard of living that I enjoyed before the pandemic, going out to dinner with friends, theater tickets, plane travel, retail therapy. If I do get a full time job, I feel like that might return. If I pursue freelance, I might end up stuck in a perpetual fear of running out of work money. Okay, I know full time work gives only a false sense of security. As working for one employer, it's like having only one client, but a steady paycheck would allow me to continually save and invest, pursuing other revenue streams not dependent on my professional skill set and the market for my labor. While I'm freelancing now, I'm scared to put money in my IRAs and locking the money up for 4 decades. I am thinking about refinancing my apartment, taking out an extra $100,000, a cash out refi, and investing it somewhere like a high dividend yielding ETF to generate some passive income. But I think it would be harder to get a bank to agree to do this if I were freelancing. Any advice you have in the situation would be greatly appreciated. I know it's a bit more nebulous than a simple pay down that high interest debt first. Thank you for all that you do. Oreo, our 10-year-old mini poodle mix, loves listening to you on our afternoon walks in the park with me. Yoni, thank you so much for this. I am sort of mixed emotions on this email. First of all, you don't have a full-time job, so keep doing what you're doing. I'm thinking as I was reading this, Mark, of Chris Gillibo, of people who he says are sort of accidentally working for themselves, like they didn't really intend to do it, and yet they're doing it. Overall, what I would say is this. I think it's a great idea for you to continue to really get used to this idea of having a side hustle. And right now it's your main hustle, but it will be a side hustle if you were to get that good in-house position. I think the problem that I would mention to you that is that it's going to be really hard to get an in-house job right now. So I would keep applying, I would keep trying, and at the same time, pursue the business that you have created as a freelancer. And I don't see that there's any real downside in pursuing both paths and seeing what occurs. I'm not sure, though, about the refi. Mark, how are you feeling about a refi on this? I don't know about taking the cash out. What do you think? Yeah, I mean, the Mark and I are just saying that there's only 11 years left, and so it's hard for us to make the case to do that. I mean, I don't know. You're so young that you only have 11 years left. So, I mean, if anything, if you were really freaked out about it, your expenses and what's going on, I guess you could refi and add time to it, but that would reduce the payment amount. But even that, I don't know. I think you got kind of a good thing going. I understand that it's scary to be on your own. I really do. And as somebody who's been on her own pretty much most of her life, I get that. And I get that there is an anxiety, but I don't think you have a choice right now. So I think that your real option is to do a dual path, pursue both, apply for jobs, get out there, do what you need to do, and also cultivate these clients. And even if you got a full-time gig, keep those favorite clients that you've accumulated and keep them as your side hustle. That's my advice. I don't know. If you've got a different idea, let us know. All right, it's Jill on Money. During the break, here's what we'd like you to do. Go to the website, jillonmoney.com, and there you can subscribe to our podcast. It happens to be called Jill on Money. Isn't that lucky? Okay, we'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are here to try to hold your hand through all the financial decisions that you are weighing as we come into the last parts of the year. It's unbelievable. I can't believe I'm saying it. I know. Take a deep breath, gang. It's very strange to be in this place. As a reminder, for all these months that we've been on lockdown, Mark and I have really just been focusing on giving you some great guests and also trying to answer your emails. Well, now, what's so cool? You can actually tell us that you want to come on the air with us. You can be a caller. Mark has figured it all out. He's a genius. So if you'd like to get in touch with us, and send us your question. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. And when you do that, be sure to let us know whether or not you'd be interested in coming on the air. And you know the side benefit of coming on the air? It's great. You get to hear Mark's voice and you get to kind of get an inside glimpse of how the Jill on Money sausage is made. Anyway, that's what Danielle did. She's calling from Michigan. Hello, Danielle. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jill. How are you?
Fantastic. What can I do for you?
All right, here's the situation. I'm a 22-year-old living in Michigan. I've just graduated from college and moved back in with my mom. All throughout college, my mom insisted that she would repay any federal student loans I take out. Upon graduating, I told her it was time to get on the scale and see if paying the loans made any financial sense. I reviewed the balance with her and asked if she could make the minimum monthly payments to pay it off in 10 years. And it quickly became clear that she could not.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Is mom fully employed? Like, what's her deal?
Yeah, so she is fully employed. She's 65 years old, about 5 years away from retirement.
Mm.
Her retirement is good, not great.
Oh, wait a second. Wait, hold on. So she's
Yes.
65. She's
Yep.
5 years from retirement. When you say her savings are good, not great, is she entitled to any pension?
Yes, she does have a small pension
Mhm.
from her previous job.
So
And
she'll have a pension and Social
Yes.
Security. And
Yes.
then when you say her retirement savings, they're good, we'll call it goodish.
Yes.
How much money do you think she's put away?
She's got about $200,000 put away.
Okay. And she have a mortgage on the house that you're living in?
Yes.
Do you know how much the mortgage is?
I do not. I think it's $150,000.
Okay. Not
think.
terrible. What do you think the house
Yeah.
is worth?
According to the Zillow or whatever website it is, it's $220,000.
Okay. Your living home, are you paying anything in terms of utilities or are you just mooching off your mom? Be honest.
Pretty much. I do
right.
pay for my car, which is about $300 a month, but that's it.
All right. So, you have a job?
Yes, I do.
Fantastic. Tell me about what else is going on. So you're living at home, you got the student loans. How much is outstanding in your total student loan debt?
So it's all federal student loans. It's
Mhm.
$26,303.
Okay.
The rate is 4.5%, but it's obviously zero right now.
Right. And are you
Mhm.
paying anything on this right now?
That's what I was going to ask you, whether I should start paying it now, because I currently have $21,200 sitting in my money market savings.
Mm.
If I should just start throwing that at it right now or wait until it starts accruing interest to start paying it off.
Let me ask you this. Right now, what do you do for a living, by the way?
I currently work at GM as a assembly engineer.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. So right now, you said you got your car payment. That's probably how you were able to save a bunch of money.
Yes.
How much do you have every month after you pay your taxes and your expenses, et cetera?
$2,345.
Wow, that's good cash flow. How long do you think you want to stay in the house? Because I don't want to chew up all your money market savings and all that good work you've done if you're going to be moving out and needing that money anytime soon. So what's your game plan?
So my game plan is to potentially move out next summer, where over the summer I'm planning to do a research project at a faraway university that I'm actually applying for, and then working on applying for a PhD program in the fall.
Oh my God. Wait
Yeah.
a minute. Is that going to cost you more money or is that all paid for because it's PhD?
Because the PhD programs, the ones that I'm looking at are, they offer a financial package, so it usually evens out. They pay you to do teaching and et cetera.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So how much did you say you have in savings right now?
$21,200 and then a Vanguard Roth with $13,500.
Are you using the GM retirement plan or are you just using a Roth?
I'm just using a Roth.
Okay, got it. How much are you putting into the Roth? Let's just say annually. Are you maxing it out? Are you putting $6,000 in?
Yeah, so because of the July 15th extension, I was able to put in $6,000 for last year and $6,000 for this year.
Oh, so you're done for this year. So
yeah.
The $2,300 a month right now
yes.
for this year
yes.
is really purely ability to pay other stuff. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we're in October. So October, so I'm just going to do some quick math on my handy dandy calculator and realize that you're going to basically to the 21 grand, you're going to add another 90. So you're going to have 30 grand. Of that 30 grand, when we think about next summer, what do you think you want to have set in the bank? You want to have 10 at least, sitting around?
Yeah, 10 sounds about right.
Okay, good. Then I have great news for you. You said how much in student loans? 26?
26.
Okay. Here's what I would do. Right now, I would take 10 grand and pop it down on your federal student loan right
Okay.
now. Then for the next 4 months, I would put $2,000 a month down on that. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So now, which is kind of great, right? Because now we've gone from 26. Let's do the math with everyone. Less 10 leaves 16. And then you're going to be able to put probably another 8 down. I mean, maybe not. Maybe over the holidays, you'll spend a little bit of money because you're having fun, whatever. But let's just say that you will start 2021. Okay, when the interest clock starts clicking around again, and it may not, but I'm just saying, let's presume yes for now, you'll have $10,000 that is in your outstanding student loan debt. Considering that you've already made your Roth contribution for this year, what I would then do is starting in January, the $23.45 that you have, I would take half of it and I would put that down on your student loan debt, and the other half can fund your Roth for 2021.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
That's it. Then by the time the summer rolls around, you're basically done. I mean, you're not totally done, but you may be really done. Let's see how things go. So in other words, big picture, paying off the student loan and maxing out your Roth, those are your jobs.
Okay.
That's it. That's what you're going to do. And just be careful wherever you're going next, not to accumulate more debt, to live within your means. I mean, it's pretty nice to be living rent-free, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that this is, you're learning that, one of the benefits of COVID is that you and your mother can keep each other company, and you can probably both improve one another's financial condition. And you know what's kind of great? Even though your mom had offered that, I really do commend you for having the wherewithal to say, Mom, you know what? I got this. And I think that's great. If I could implore more people like you out there to really look at your own finances, but also consider, are your parents in the best financial shape to be able to start helping you out? And I think this is such a mature decision. I can't even believe you're 20 years old, but I feel very strongly you're doing a great job. And for that, you get, Mark, give her a bell. All right, you don't have a bell. We've got nothing. But I think you're on your way. And if you have any other questions, just let us know. But I think that's the game plan. You feel good about that?
I do. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much for calling. We really appreciate it. Keep up the good work at GM, and let us know if there's anything else we can do.
I will, absolutely.
All right. When we return, we're going to do more of your questions during the break. Do me a favor, go to JillOnMoney.com, and there you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. It comes out every Friday. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. We are trying to hold your hands through these unprecedented, when you say unprecedented, it gets so watered down. It is unprecedented though, really, isn't it? Through this pandemic, through lockdowns, through resurgence, through it all. And also try to understand that, we know there are bigger things going on than your money, but this is a podcast that's focused on your money. And so if you've got career decisions to make, you have to make choices about what bills to pay. You have to figure out whether or not to refinance. You want to figure out whether or not to buy your big house in the suburbs and blow out of the city. You want to figure out how to manage your investments, whatever it is. I don't really care. Whatever you got going on, if it is remotely associated with a dollar sign, Mark and I want to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. askjill@jillonmoney.com. All right, this is an email from D, and it's about Social Security and retirement. And D writes, after 42 years employed with the same company, holy smokes, due to the pandemic causing airlines to ground aircraft, which in turn caused the airplane manufacturing to slow down, causing our support products to also slow down, I was let go at the end of June. Boy, isn't that the chain reaction, huh, gang? It's amazing. It's a support product to ground aircraft and airplane manufacturers, and boom, 42 years later. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. The separation package had my salary continue for 6 months, and that will end at the beginning of 2021. Okay. I'll be 63 on December 31st. I'm considering drawing Social Security. The letters that I received state that I could receive $2,000 per month. Okay. So that would be an early Social Security claim. We don't love that usually, but let's hear more. Okay. D says, I'm grandfathered into my previous company's retirement plan. It was capped several years ago. So my salary increases for the calculation froze, but at least I have a pension. That's good. I was hoping to retire at age 65. This may have been a good thing, as I was a workaholic, always on the run to support our products, on call 24/7. $500,000 in a 401k, a mortgage, which about 125 grand remaining. I was planning on taking a draw from my 401k to pay off the mortgage, just to save on refinancing and eliminating my largest monthly payment. Don't do that. Do not do that. Do not do that. D, do not do that. Do not pay down the mortgage. Okay? I know you want to get rid of the bill. Do not do that. Okay? Please. You need your liquidity. That $500,000 in that 401k, sacrosanct. Okay, I need to find out when I can start my pension with the company. I wasn't planning for looking for another job. I'm hoping to stretch it out. Any recommendations? Okay, so the plan changed because your life changed. I think the first thing I want to know is I think you're right. You've got to find out details about the pension. Because if that pension is pegged to age 65 for some reason, I'm hopeful it's not, then, there's not a lot to do. There is some case to be made that you not draw your Social Security and potentially use the 401k money to float you for the first couple of years of your retirement. So before we make that decision, here are the questions I have for you. Number one, how much money do you have in just savings, an emergency reserve fund? Number two, what are the details of that pension? Number three, including your mortgage, what are your expenses? What is it that you need every month to pay your bills? And finally, is there anything else that that you're looking at in terms of how you should be focusing your attention? In other words, do you have someone to take care of? Is there an elderly relative? Are there children? What else is going on? And and by the way, when you say you have a mortgage, but I'm just wondering how much is your primary residence worth? So when we have the answers to those questions, I think we'd be much better equipped to help you plan. But interestingly enough, everyone listening, sometimes you do have a plan and we actually have to really rejigger the plan based on your life. That's just reality. There's nothing we can do about that. That is your life. That's when people say to me, when should I change the allocation, the plan? When your life changes. This is a life-changing event. Now, normally, gang, I do not like to recommend that people claim Social Security benefits early, but this could be a case. It could be a case where you should. And mostly because we just don't know what the options are right now. So, all right. Now I know that that's tough, to swallow. And what are you going to do? I feel like, Dee, you can sit there and feel really bad for yourself. You're allowed to, but you got a great attitude. You're getting paid through the end of the year, which is great. And, when you ask me about should you look for another job, I don't know if you should look for a full-time job, but if there's any way that you can figure out how to make a few bucks on the side, it's going to help. And, someone reminded us of this at a different show where they wrote in and said that some of the advice that I gave about trying to just have a little side hustle, having a little part-time job, something on the side is very helpful, especially if you are somehow confronting retirement earlier than you had planned on. This is not an easy situation. And, I get it. But I think that once we have the details, we can help you out. And I'm sorry that you lost your job. 42 years is an awful long time. Sure is. All right, you're listening to Jill on Money. During the break, here is a great idea for you. Maybe what you should do is start to check out what is it about your own retirement plan that has a few holes. You know how you can do that? You can go and try to calculate your retirement planning needs. And we've got lots of links to different places that you can do that, or maybe you can bookmark something, but that should be on your to-do list. Let me rerun my retirement numbers. It's a good idea. All right, it's Jill on Money. When we return, more of your questions. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are here to try to help you navigate your financial decisions. If you have a question, 2 ways to get in touch with us. You can email us, askjill@jillonmoney.com. And you can also very easily go onto our website, jillonmoney.com, and hit the contact button. The contact button will give you an ability to just go send us a little note. Tell us what's going on. Remember, we are doing callers again, and not as many as we used to, but still, we are doing callers. If you would like to be on the show with us, just make a note of that when you send us the email, okay? So here is a note from Cindy, whose subject is matured annuity. Okay, here's the message. My mother is soon to be 90 years old, and she has an annuity, and it is fully matured. She has to make a choice as to what to do with it, and I'm unsure how to advise her. She must begin annuity payments unless we provide alternative instructions. Okay, here we go, the choices. You ready, gang? Choice number 1, extend the maturity date of the contract and postpone receiving payments. 2, surrender the contract, receive a lump sum payment. 3, begin receiving annuity payments. Okay. Now, Cindy says, I'm the co-owner on the account, and I don't want her to lose most of it in taxes. Choice 3 has numerous options that I'm unsure of. What is the best choice for us? It's approximately $90,000. Please advise. Okay. Now, here's the question. We need to know, and you can find this out from the annuity company, the $90,000, we need to know how much of this is taxable. And the other thing that I need to know, just to help you out, is this an IRA annuity? I bet it's not. I bet it's just a plain old non-retirement or non-qualified annuity. Let's presume it's a non-qualified annuity. Does she need any income? That's a good question. If she needs income, you could do it. If she does, remember that no matter what, if it's choice number 2, the surrender the contract and get the lump sum, choice number 3, receiving annuity payments, both of those choices will mean that you have a tax liability. So what we want to know is the cost basis of this annuity contract. The annuity company should know that, right? So it's the amount of money you put in. So let's say she put in $20,000 years ago, and the money has been growing in there, and that, with the accumulation in the annuity, the cost basis is 30,000, and now it's worth 90,000. So that gap between 30 and 90, that would be taxable income. So the idea here of trying to avoid taxes is also an interesting one, because as you're writing this and you say that you are a co-owner on it, I guess the question is, whose Social Security is listed first? I presume it's hers. Is she in a high tax bracket or a low tax bracket? Is she in a higher tax bracket than you are? I mean, this is a thorny one. I'm not sure about this. My gut is that I'd want to know, really, the most important part is the tax liability before we make this choice. The idea of the annuity payments could be fine. There is going to be a tax liability, which is also fine. I need to know the ownership, the tax situation, and also kind of mom's situation in general. And is her cash flow fine? Does she need some money? Do you need some money? Are there any other siblings? Cindy, I know I'm a pain in the neck, right? Oh, well. Another annuity question came from Donna, who's got an annuity, $400,000. Donna's 65. And she says, same question, essentially. She says that the gains in her annuity, $258,000. And she said, I wanted to keep it for long-term care in case I needed it. If I start withdrawals from it, I'll be taxed on the gains. You're not taxed on the gains in an annuity, gang. You are taxed on the accumulation, and it is taxable income as in ordinary income. I know you never wished to invest in all these annuities, but Donna, especially, I really want to know more about what's going on for you. And I need to know whether this is is it a retirement or non-retirement annuity? Need lots of details with these annuity contracts. They are incredibly complex, which makes the decision making as to what to do with them incredibly complex. And it really also depends on other money you guys have that's out there. This is why I really like to avoid these annuity contracts. There's nothing worse than a document that is basically 200 pages long with very tiny print that's supposed to explain the details of a product that you're buying. It's a good sign to probably avoid it. So, from the annuity standpoint, ladies and gentlemen, lots of information, need some follow-up. I'm sorry, I know I'm a pain in the neck, but so be it. Send me some follow-ups and we'll get you the information that you need, okay? It's Jill on Money. Hey, I wrote a lot about complexity and financial products in my book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. Hey, you know what's great? You could buy about 25 copies and give them away for the holidays. There's a good present to pick. Huh. I just thought of that, Mark. Kind of good, huh? All right. Jill on Money. Send us a note. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are broadcasting from the Capital One Bank virtual studios. Capital One, this is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? Maybe this is going to be the final push towards a cashless society, Mark. The whole what's in your wallet thing. Dirty money, don't want to touch it. I was talking to a guy who was part of a startup. He still is trying to get people to do tips not in cash, but help the service workers by tipping through an app. And he said it was basically getting zero pickup before the pandemic. And now everyone's like, yes, I don't want to touch the money. Yeah. Financial services changing, changing, changing. Okay. Here is the last question of the hour from S. See, if your names are hard, I'm over it. I'm done. S says, I am a small business owner. I'm going to turn 70 in January 2021. I'm in great health, no medications, and I'll be drawing Social Security in January. I'm currently drawing a good pension from my previous employment. It is sufficient for me to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I've made substantial profits, $500,000, from my business during the last 2 years, and I never invested in anything in my life. I'm not familiar with the stock market. So now at 70, now I'd like to aggressively invest so that I could leave substantial inheritance for my 2 kids. I greatly appreciate if you could advise as to where to start. Thanks. This is so dangerous, and I would not suggest that you go all in and be really aggressive if you've never done it before. If you don't know what you're doing, you might want to get some sort of financial advisor. You may want to use a robo-advisor, some hybrid, but I would not start doing this without really understanding what your risk is, what else is going on in your life. And, this is a terrible idea. This is like a recipe for disaster. I could just hear from this person 6 months from now, like, oh, I put my $500,000 in the stock market. It went down. The stock market sucks. I don't know. I don't think this is a good idea, but you better get some help if you're going to do it. And I need more details about you. It's Jill on Money. Stay tuned. We've got the interview coming up next hour. If you've got a financial question, just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are broadcasting from the Policy Genius Virtual Studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Just go to policygenius.com. All right, it's hour number 2, and that means that, as always, we do like to remind you that this is sort of the interview part of it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be sending us an email, or maybe if you're listening to this and something jogs your brain, shoot us a note. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com, askjill@jillonmoney.com. So today we are joined by a guest. Actually, I went to high school with this woman, but I didn't know her in high school because, I was too cool for that. I'm just kidding. That's not it. It's just that I was 2 years older. And I actually met up with her when I was doing an event through another friend from high school. So my friend is Lauren, and Lauren said, oh, this woman, Debbie, we went to high school with her. She does these really cool speaking gigs. I think she should interview you for one of her gigs. So that's how I got reacquainted with her. Her name is Debbie Epstein Henry. What an interesting background she has. She's trained as a lawyer, but life took a very different turn for Debbie. And she has become a really interesting speaker. She writes and she consults, and she is launching a new podcast. And so I just thought it'd be kind of fun to have her on. She has a real different outlook. Here's the beginning of our interview with Debbie Epstein Henry. Tell us a little bit about what happened to you after you graduated from Scarsdale High School.
I will give you an abbreviated version, but essentially I went to law school and I had a terrifying experience as a newlywed at age 26. My husband and I were at a New York City diner and I felt out of sorts. We raced back to our apartment and I had a major seizure, which led to an emergency room diagnosis for a brain tumor. And 5 days post-seizure, I underwent brain surgery. And my parents and husband recount this magic moment when the surgeon ran down the hall and yelled, "It's a parasite," which basically means you're as good as new. And in my hazy post-op state, I not only thought I'm incredibly lucky, but I just had a moment of a realization that I need to take smart risks in my life. And I'm not going to wait until another crazy thing happens to start really living the life that I wanted to live. And so I stopped practicing law shortly after joining a couple of law firms, and I became a public speaker, an entrepreneur, and a writer, and started loving what I was doing. And so from there, I run a speaker series, and I have written 2 books, the second of which I co-authored, and I co-founded a company that was acquired earlier this year. And so what's next? My next big risk-taking endeavor just is a natural to do a podcast. And the speaker series I've been running has been going on for 20 years. And so a podcast was really just the natural iteration of that.
Can I go back to the surgery for a second?
Yeah.
Because I want to bring you to your worst possible moment in your life, but maybe your best. Can you explain, what do you mean a parasite? Like you actually had a parasite from traveling and then that it traveled to your brain? Or is that a classification of a tumor?
No, and it's a really interesting question. So basically what happened was I had this seizure, and what triggered the seizure was what's called edema, which is swelling in your brain. And what they realized when they did the brain scan in the emergency room is that I had one major parasite in my brain that was lodged in the occipital lobe. And usually when you have a parasite, by the time they do the brain scan, there are a multitude of them. Because there was only one lesion, they had to rule out and make sure that it was, in fact, a parasite and not a brain tumor. And so only then did they do the surgery and realize, okay, this is a parasite. What's strange about it is the parasite that I had is typically found in Latin American countries, very unusual for my demographic. And so until they extracted the parasite, did they confirm that, in fact, this was not a tumor.
I just want everyone to know that this is one of the reasons why I don't like to read up on people, because I did not know this whole story about you, which is fantastic that I don't know it.
Right.
And it also really does bring home so much about what you are trying to do in the world, and that idea of not waiting. It's weird that you had this terrible event in your life. When you have it in your 20s, it certainly does put everything in perspective. And, you know, you're healthy and you've got kids and everyone's doing well, but it also really does make it interesting to me to understand the path of your career. I guess that the other part of this is, how did you get involved in really focusing on women in the workplace? Because that's not necessarily something that, you know, in your 20s, let's say, I guess that, you know, 80s, early 90s was really going on in most law firms. No one really cared, like, oh yeah, we need some women. Let's hire some girls, is really what was happening. So how did you get involved in that?
That was also a really sort of momentous occasion for me. So I was practicing law in New York at a large firm, and then relocated to the Philadelphia area and joined a Philadelphia firm. And I hated litigation, which is what I was doing at the time. And occasionally I'd have lunch with 3 other lawyers at my firm who similarly had kids like me who were young. We'd talk about what works for us, what doesn't. And I found that every woman I was speaking to, friends who were doctors and all different types of professionals, were similarly struggling as I was as a Gen Xer, of trying to play an integral role in our kids' lives, but also be successful and on the partnership or equivalent track. And in 1999, I sent an email out to 6 lawyers and said, hey, I'm starting a brown bag lunch group for lawyers interested in work-life issues. The first event will be at my firm. Forward the invite to anyone you know who's interested. And within a couple of days, 150 people emailed me back in response. I was a third-year associate. I knew I was onto something. I didn't know what it was, but I thought, I'm clearly not alone here. And this is an issue that is a sort of secret story that everybody is struggling with. And so I ran that first event in July of 1999, and the response was enormous. 6 months later, I was featured in a local legal paper, and I sent that news story out to my top 50 news publications and said, work-life issues, they're speaking to a need that nobody's talking about. And NPR called and Morning Edition said, hey, can we feature you? And that story ran on NPR nationally in 2000. And it put me on the national map. And I started doing speaking around the country and got features in the New York Times and other publications, and stopped practicing law. And this 150-person Philadelphia network quickly became over 10,000 lawyers nationally. And what happened was the work-life issues sort of morphed into women's issues generally. And since then, I now speak on career issues and issues outside the law and regularly work outside of industry. But it was that 1999 email that sort of struck a nerve and gave me the impetus and the confidence to leave practice and move on and do the things that I loved and really cared about.
We'll be back with more of our interview with Debbie Epstein Henry. Hey, during the break, go onto the website, jillonmoney.com, and there check out the resource section. The resource section packed with a bunch of stuff that we have found through you and also that Mark and I have discovered along the way. Jill on Money, that's the website, and it's also the name of the show. Isn't that convenient? We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. If you have a financial question, a career question, something that's on your mind, well, we would just love to hear from you. We really would. It's so much fun when we get these emails from you that are really interesting and that we can help you out with. If you learned anything from the first hour of the program, it's that more information is definitely useful rather than less. So send us as much as you can about what's going on in your financial life when you send us that question. The email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Now, a lot of your questions recently have been about careers, and our guest this hour, Debbie Epstein Henry, is a really good person to discuss a career change. She took a big leap and had a big change of career. And so in this part of the interview, we're talking about how to pivot your own career, especially for folks who might have some old student loan debt, what's saddling them. And Debbie gives some very practical advice. Here's more of our interview with Debbie Epstein Henry. Now, of course, many people who are listening to this say like, oh, great for you. You know, you two girls or women, whatever we're called these days, grew up with money, had the ability to make these choices. How can we help people who don't have the backing of already starting, essentially on second base to think about this differently? There are people who are graduating and their parents who are hearing this and they're saying, my kid has law school debt or my kid has undergraduate debt, would love to do one thing, wants to do another thing, but has to service that debt. So how do you empower some of those types of women and men as well, that, that people who are coming out, that they don't actually have the same ability to make choices and take on risks that you and I have had?
It's a really important issue, and there's no question the two of us were raised with privilege and have that privilege, and that's something that can't be diminished. That all said, there are ways to do this and take risks and take smart risks in a way that makes it feasible for those who have more financial constraints. I wrote a piece a while ago called Responsive Initiative, a fresh twist on innovation. And the premise of that article was that people are stagnating. A lot of people have ideas. They want to start a business. They want to break out and change their careers, and they're frozen. And part of it is this feeling of, oh, this is a financial luxury for people who are risk takers. But another aspect of it is people who feel like, oh, in order to innovate or do something new, I have to completely come up with the next iPhone. And that's really inaccurate. So much of innovation or creation or starting a new business, whatever it may be, is about being better attuned to a market need than anybody else's and being more responsive than anybody else. And so along the lines of your question, what I did was I actually straddled two worlds for 3 years. So I ran events, the first event in July of 99 that I recounted, but then I ran events for the next 3 years on a pro bono basis. I developed a following. I grew that network. I developed an expertise. I became a point person. I got press. I did this all while I was an associate at a law firm. And so by the time I gave notice at that firm 3 years later, I launched the New York chapter of what I was doing. I started charging a membership fee for my events, and I was profitable from the day I started. So I was piloting things. I was straddling two worlds. And so if you're willing to put in the sweat equity and really work the extra hours, and this was no easy feat at the time. I had two kids at the time who were very young. I then had a third kid, and I was a litigation associate, but this was my love. I wanted to see if it was going to work. And those 3 years of piloting and straddling were the ways that I could ensure I have a viable business. I'm the right point person to do this, and I can actually be profitable in doing it.
I love the idea that you were sort of testing the concept while you had a job, because what I always get nervous about is someone calls up and they'll say, I just want to ditch everything and I'm going to start my own business. First of all, you don't know if you want to run your own business. There are a lot of people who are better employees than they are business owners. So that's number one. And number two is I like that you basically said I could start this business essentially knowing I could be profitable. And I think you don't have to start a new business. You can just you can nurture something that interests you while you still have something else going on. And I want to talk about how you have found the COVID-19 workplace from home issue. How is it going for you? And how have you noticed differences among some of the people that you're talking to?
After starting my speaking business, I co-founded a company called Bliss Lawyers, and I ran it for 9 years with my two co-founders. And we were actually miraculously acquired by a company called Axiom in February of this year. And they had
good timing, girl.
Thank you. They had been our largest competitor, and they're the global industry leader in talent on this issue in the legal profession. And so the reason why I raise it is when we built Bliss Lawyers as a company, we ran it on a virtual platform. So we had a corporate team dispersed around the country, and our lawyers worked at clients' offices, at law firms and companies around the country, but our corporate team worked virtually, as did my two founders and myself. And so that's how I know how to work. So personally, on the COVID front, what has changed so much is I do speaking on site in the US and abroad. And those spring trips I had planned to speak in Madrid and Edinburgh, they were sadly canceled along with all of my national speaking. So that's what's changed for me. But I feel fortunate that I've been able to still work, and all of my work has gone online. And actually, one of the fun things about launching a podcast and doing the recording this summer and then launching this fall is that it's actually, and you know this, of course, firsthand, it's a medium that's not compromised by COVID. It's always done by audio. And so the fact that you can do exciting work in a platform that is not compromised by the existing constraints of COVID is really, really exciting to me. The other part of your question, really the notion of what I've seen with others, is I think there's such a range of issues and challenges that people are facing. So if you're economically disadvantaged, you are struggling in a way that is so much more difficult because maybe your technology is not good, or you don't have it at all, or your quarters are so closely confined that you're at a greater risk of getting the virus, or you're working from home and you don't have the luxury of a separate space for working than for living otherwise. So there are those constraints. And then it's interesting when you look at people, whether they're single or, maybe a millennial who lives alone in a city, is confined spatially and also is feeling very isolated than other people who have kids who are young at home or overwhelmed by homeschooling. So my youngest of three just went to college a year ago. He's thankfully there right now, even though his classes are virtual. So my husband and I have been very fortunate to be doing exciting work and also not under those constraints.
So what about the idea that people, especially younger people, are feeling like I don't know how to be in touch with my older, more seasoned professionals. It's not even like a networking thing, but how am I getting nurtured in my journey of my career when we're remotely working? What advice do you have for those younger folks? Because you have a couple of those, three of them, but two who are in the workplace. What is it that younger people, or what advice can we give to some of our millennials who are I think struggling a little bit about how to form more powerful connections with their coworkers and really their bosses?
Yes, and I think it is really a challenge for that junior employee right now about not feeling invisible and also feeling like they can reach out to people who are powerful, who have voices. There are a number of things that I think people can do that will make a difference. I wrote a piece years ago called Make Your Ask a Give. And I think about this idea with junior employees is that you want to maybe make an ask of senior people to get noticed, to get that interesting project. But in order to do that effectively, you have to be the giver. You have to see those senior people and say, how can I be helpful to them? What give do I have? What way can I be helpful so that they want to support me? Not that it's a quid pro quo, but there's a natural generosity that ensues when you extend yourself to somebody.
We'll get back to our interview in just a second. During the break, go to JillOnMoney.com. And you know what? Bookmark it, baby. Bookmark it, because you'll be back. I know you will. Check it out. The website, it's JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. And today, our guest for the second hour is Debbie Epstein Henry. And she is somebody who has really taken a lot of different zigs and zags in her own career. The next part of her life, after being a consultant, after doing some speaking about how people can manage their legal career, how she's really focused on women in the workplace, all these things sort of all came together and is coming together this month, where she launched her new podcast. It's called Inspiration Loves Company. And so to hear more about that, here's the conclusion of our interview with Debbie Epstein Henry. How did you pick the topics for your first season?
What I did was I looked at my speakers from the DH speaker series, including you, and I thought over the years, who has really compelling stories to tell and who covers topics that are universally applicable. And I looked at those guests and I invited them back, and they're all total rock stars, and the topics that they cover are varied. So I think they're very complementary. I invited those guests back, and I wanted 10 in season 1. And the topics we're covering are very varied, from money with you to issues around women and bias and work and candor and balance, leadership, sponsorship. Those are some of the key themes for season 1. And so identifying those really great speakers, but also the topics that I think are most prevalent on people's minds right now, that's really what we wanted to do, is be the resource on that.
How will you judge success? What will be your metric?
My metric in terms of success, and let's be real, of course, popularity and responses through social media, that's some of the feedback that's going to certainly be an indicator. But when I talk about what I want to achieve through this podcast, it's really 3 things. 1 is inspiration, 2 is engagement, and 3 is impact. Is this worth people talking about? Are people eagerly awaiting the next episode? That's the engagement piece. Inspiration is, does it give people information and insights for them to be moved, and they take the information and it's empowering to them? But third, impact is about, can this drive people to make change? Can they take the information gleaned from these episodes and say, I'm going to make that change in my job. I'm going to ask for that promotion. I'm going to seek out that sponsor to back me. I'm going to take more control of my finances. that type of action, if that is not part of it, I feel like the story will be incomplete.
What else about in this process? What have you learned about yourself in the interview process?
I actually recorded the initial trailer for the podcast several months ago, and I shared it with my trusted advisors, and one of them in particular, who's a dear friend and really very wise in terms of perspectives on things like this. She was like, "You can't do that. You can't record that. You can't release that. I'm not going to support you if you put this out there and share it with my network." And it was too narrow. It wasn't current really with the current environment. And so I re-recorded and switched up my guest list and sort of reinvented on it. So that's part of this, is being open to feedback. One of my guests for season 1 is Kim Scott, who's the author of the New York Times bestselling book, Radical Candor. And I really was thinking about that, about being, willing to accept feedback. That feedback came from you too, when I sent you an outline for the episode we were doing together. And you were like, "Don't ever do that. Of course, you're going to ruin our spontaneity." And you were right. And guess what? I listened. What I do now is I say to a guest, "I'm preparing an outline. If you're interested in knowing the questions in advance, let me know. And otherwise, we'll just have a conversation." And I let the guest dictate what they want to know in advance and what they want to share and what I should share.
What is something that you've learned, both good and bad, about yourself from this period of time of the last 7 months?
I think the thing that's been good from my perspective is this has really slowed me down. I'm actually really busy professionally, but the fact that there's just this vacuum of time that I'm not spending in travel and airports and trains and all that sort of stuff, it's just slowed down and more regularized my daily life. And that has been, really feels good. And all those people who run around and say that I'm busy, it's like, what are you so busy about? Like, it feels actually good to just be more settled. I thought I would really miss the travel, and there's been something actually good about it. In terms of what is bad, I would say I'm really fortunate to have incredible parents who are 87 and 84, and we were able to see each other a lot this summer outside, et cetera. But I really am just sad about not hugging them, hugging my friends, and just that lack of intimacy, and coupled by fear that you're going to get, particularly older people, sick or that sort of thing. It's so profoundly sad to me. And I feel that there's just a lot lost in that inability to physically connect.
I have a hard time with that myself, just in terms of, I think the reality is that I am a huggy, touchy-feely person. So that's tough for me as well. It's sort of an awkwardness on my own part, like, wow, how do I actually deal with that? But I am very grateful in this lockdown to continue to meet great people like you. You know that I wish you all the best success. The podcast is called Inspiration Loves Company. You can go ahead and subscribe to it anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. Again, Inspiration Loves Company. And there'll be 10 episodes in this first season. And Debbie Epstein Henry, nay Debbie Epstein, will be your host, will bring you through all of these really interesting interviews with her very fine brain and surgically repaired brain from a million years ago, make you, I think, really think about some of the topics that can often be tough to sort of digest on your own. So, Debbie, go get him, as my father used to say. He'd say, "Jilly girl, go get him." So, Debbie girl, go get him. Thanks so much to Debbie Epstein Henry. We'll have a link to the podcast and to her website. You can check out some of the stuff that she's written. Very, very thoughtful woman. And we want to thank her so much for joining us. If you have a question for Debbie or for me, I'll always pass it on to our guests. Just send us an email. It's askjill@jillonmoney.com. When we return, back to your questions. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. If you have a financial question, if you have even a big picture, an economic question, anything that is on your mind, give us a holler. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That's what David did. And the subject line, can I retire? I think that's probably our most widespread, prevalent question, good times and bad. All right. David says he listens to our daily podcast. If you want to listen to our daily podcast, just go to jillonmoney.com. You can subscribe. There's my little tag there for you. All right. David says, listens to the daily podcast. He says, I enjoy it very much. Thank you. Oh, I recently lost my job of over 35 years. Wow, this is a second longtime employee who's lost a job. Eesh. I'm 63 years old, married to my wife, who is 56. We live in New York. I'm receiving full severance through March of 2021, and I receive bi-weekly pay in the amount of $3,500 take home. Okay, wife works part-time, but all of her check goes to paying feed and board for her horse. Oh my God, which she loves and could not live without. I beg to differ. I bet she could live without it, but that's just me. Okay. As of February, I'll be debt-free with the exception of a truck payment, $563 a month at a rate of 3.79%. Home equity balance, 10 grand, 6.5%. What's with these high interest notes? I'm eligible to receive $2,300 in Social Security benefits. I'm not taking it right now. Remember, he's 63. Okay. The only other expenses, food, incidental, life insurance, 500 grand. It costs $300 a month. Feel like I need to keep it. I'm not in the best of health. All right. 2,500 in cash value on that. Okay. House will be paid off in January. Oh, that's interesting. It's worth 185 grand. We're planning on living in this house for the rest of our lives. 600 grand in a T. Rowe Price retirement IRA. That's from his old 401k. No pension. $18,000 in cash savings, 4 to 5 months reserve. We could scale back on expenses. One daughter left in college. What? She's a junior, and David's like, I got 30 grand set aside for that. It's enough. Okay. I'd like to try to get a part-time job if I can, rather than getting back into the stress of my former career. I was making $175,000 a year. Can you see a way for me to make it as a retiree with a part-time position to supplement our income? I don't think so, but I thought I'd run it by you. All right. Severance is through March. Wife works part-time, so we're not counting wife. It's close. It really is close. I don't know if you have to make 175 grand a year. Here's simple math for you. If you could just make as much money as your expense level, not even much more. You don't necessarily have to put a lot of money away into retirement, but to just delay that Social Security. As you write this, you say you're 63 years old, your wife doesn't sound like she's working too much, and so she's going to claim on your record. And that's another reason why I think it might be better for you if you could delay pulling that Social Security trigger until your full retirement age. It's probably 66. And that way she'll actually get more for her whole life because she'll probably be claiming on half of your record. So here's a few things to think about. I don't know if you're making extra payments on your house, but while you're receiving this full severance, what I would do is try to beef up a couple of things. I would beef up your emergency reserve fund to definitely get that 6-month reserve. Okay. The second thing I would do, if for some reason you're making extra payments on your mortgage, don't do that. But as much as possible, I'd love for you to try to bang down that home equity balance. 6.5% is a high rate, and I really would like you to get rid of that. So whatever money was going into the mortgage, let's say the mortgage finishes up, the next thing you should do is attack the home equity loan balance and then attack the truck payment. Beyond that, I think if you could get a job in terms of maybe not a full-time job, but a job where you can cover your basic costs of living, then that would be great. I'm worried about the Social Security because you don't have that much money. 600 grand in a retirement account, it's okay. But I don't think you can just call it quits right now. You don't have to do exactly what you were doing, the stress and all that. But I think what you're going to need to do is find a way to make enough money to cover your expenses. Again, it doesn't have to be more, but you need to delay your Social Security until you're your full retirement age. You'll get more money. And between now and the time you claim that Social Security, you want to be mortgage free, truck loan free, and home equity line of credit or loan free. That's your goal. So, whatever it takes to get that done, that's what I would be doing. And yeah, if you can skinny up your expenses right now, course notwithstanding, I'd do that too. Okay. All right, that is Jill on Money, segment number 4. Segment number 5, the last one of the program coming up. It's so exciting. If you have a financial question, give us a holler. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are closing up the show. But before we go, we have time for another email. We do want to remind you that we are broadcasting from the Policy Genius virtual studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Just go to policygenius.com. Michael writes, I'm 63 years young. I'm looking to retire at 65 and then to move. Should I pay in full for my new house? Should I use part of my 401k to pay for it if I had to? My 401k is through my employer. Would you advise moving to a firm that has professionals to do this, like Schwab or Edward Jones? Okay. First of all, no, you don't have to pay in full for a new house. The bigger issue is, should you buy a house at all? Maybe you should rent for a little while. Are you staying in the same area? Are you going to find yourself moving to an area that is much cheaper? Are you really downsizing? So those are some questions to consider. No, you should not use your 401k unless you have so much money in that 401k that it is far in excess of your retirement needs. And we don't know that. You didn't give me any numbers. Should you have a firm help you with managing your 401k? Yeah, I mean, I guess you could. But it really depends on what your goals and objectives are going to be and whether or not you want to pay some organization to help you with through the process. It's funny. It really does not always work that, the professional's better than not. It's really a question of what your needs are. I think right now it sounds like you need to be doing some retirement planning. That would mean that you could either do that yourself or you could hire someone to do it. But you really need to think clearly about what your game plan is going to be. And then, as you've heard throughout this program, boy, those plans can change in an instant. So we want to try to be really conservative with those game plans. Okay, guys? All right, that's it. That is the show. We want to thank you so much for listening. If you have a question, send us an email, day or night. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We would like to remind you to wash your hands often and for a nice 20-second period, okay? Wear your masks, maintain your physical distancing, and try to do something nice for somebody else today. We'll talk to you next week.